Hey, what's up, y'all? The P Man with you with another round of Loud and Unfiltered, and I've got some great news for you today. But first, not our sponsor, but maybe one of these days, Dr. Pepper will be. Got to get me something to drink first. Oh, this stuff is so good. You hear that? Man, that sounds great. Okay, so as I promised, great news. Yeah. So today starts the 12 episodes of Christmas. That means today and every day, I'm going to release another episode of Loud and Unfiltered, a little gift from me to you for all your support. More importantly, for all of your encouragement throughout this entire process. So the 12 episodes of Christmas will kick off with this episode. Some of them will be flashback interviews. Some of these episodes will be new episodes. You're going to get a mixture of a little bit of everything on Loud and Unfiltered. So we're going to kick off the 12 episodes of Christmas with Spider from Powerman 5000. Now, this one is a flashback interview. We're going to go back to 2014. That was right at about the time they were going to release their new album, Builders of the Future. Of course, anytime a band releases a new album, they go out on the road. So we'll talk about touring, what the fans expect to see from Powerman 5000 every time they take the stage, some advice for some of the new and upcoming bands, how the internet has impacted the music industry. Mind you, we're going back to 2014, but a lot of this, if not all of it, is incredibly relevant to today. It's really cool when you listen to almost a decade ago. Everything mimics our current environment. So sit back, relax, crank it up a little bit. We've got Powerman 5000 frontman Spider from, talking about the new album, Builders of the Future. And we're going to pick up where Spider talks about how long it's been since they've been on stage.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's crazy how time flies. I mean, we've been just hauled up, finishing this record and just been dying to get back on the road. And, Texas is always, very friendly to us, and we always have the best time there. So we're pretty excited to get back on the stage for sure.
You just briefly mentioned about finishing up the new album. It's called Builders of the Future. This is kind of like a pinnacle of a career type of album. I mean, fantastic stuff.
Well, thanks, man. I hope so. I mean, listen, every time we make a record, I always think it's going to be easy. We get in the studio or rehearsal space, and we write the first song. I'm like, we got this, man. We'll be done with this record in a week, and then fast forward a year later, and we're still working on it. But no, I mean, you're right, man. This is like one of those records that it's just, there's something about it, and listen, who knows, man? These days, the business, who knows what happens. But
right.
The reality is, just from a creative standpoint, I couldn't be more excited about this. I feel like on the last record, Somewhere on the Other Side of Nowhere, with songs like Supervillain and Show Me What You Got, we got back in our groove. We got back into that place of planting the flag of like, this is what Powerman's all about, that sort of crazy mix of electronics and metal and just that up-tempo, empowering. It's sort of the opposite of what a lot of bands are doing these days. A lot of bands are that sort of mid-tempo, ballady kind of, which is great, but that's not what we do. We have a different approach. And, with this record, I really feel like we just nailed it. And, you're right, the single How to Be Human is really just the beginning. Once everyone can hear the whole album, they're going to see, like, it's really exciting album.
Well, you personally, and of course, with Powerman 5000, you've always been a concept type of person, whether it's on stage or when you listen to an album, how songs, seg to each other and all that stuff. Did you carry over the same type of vibe with this one?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's more than just the songs for us. It's sort of like almost like a lifestyle and a vibe. And I always loved bands that I felt like were really authentic. Bands that you wanted to know the guys in the band because they probably like the same movies as you, or they like whatever it is. That whole thing. And I always loved to incorporate that kind of thing into the band. And I feel like those are the projects that always meant the most to me, when it felt like, like I said, you can sort of read more into it than just the song. And the reality is, these days, most bands don't even write their own songs.
No.
You know, I mean, it used to be, you know, that was for the pop stars, but now it's infiltrated the rock scene, and it's shocking to me. You know, it's like, I want to know that the guy singing that song on stage means it, and it's his words, and it's his vibe, you know. And these days, it's like your basic rock band that you think is authentic had 10 people writing their song for them. It's a joke, you know. And it's so Powerman is what it is, you know. Like, love it or hate it, when you're a fan of this band, you know you're getting the real thing, and you know you're getting this weird pop culture, science fiction, horror movie, heavy metal, electronic brew that, you know, is really like unlike anybody else is doing.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's for the most of the bands out there, they're not writing their own stuff, and whether it's somebody else writing it or the band is writing it, they only focus on, I mean, and it's, I mean, they have a valid reason with today's climate in the record industry, but they only focus on one single. But you guys have always stayed true to form with providing a full album experience, as opposed to, hey, why don't you buy these 10 to 13 songs and there's only going to be one of them that means anything?
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, it's very singles oriented now, you know, and which is fine. You know, that's what, and it kind of always has been. But now that you can cherry pick songs on iTunes or stream them, most. You know, it's back to the days of, you know, just get the one good song, you know, but I can't do that, you know. For me, it's, you know, I like the fact that there's this body of work that you want to listen to every song, you know, you're not skipping through it just to get to the song you heard on the radio. And, you know, again, that comes back to, you know, being authentic and having it be, you know, every note and every word come from the band, you know.
Right.
It's just, so it's always, you know, track 1 is as important as track 10, you know. It's not, we don't look at it in a singles kind of way.
Right. Well, you guys, like we just mentioned, Builders of the Future from Powerman 5000 is set to drop on May the 27th. And, man, it's, you know, with this new album, obviously, you know, we're still, still a month and a half away or whatever from the release of the album. So, with that being said, how much of the new stuff will you be giving your fans when you're out on the road?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually going to play quite a bit of new stuff. We're taking, you know, usually that's a scary prospect. You know what I mean? Like a lot of bands, you know, you don't want to play too many new songs. But honestly, I'm so confident when we're in rehearsal. You know, when it's just us in that rehearsal space, I'm telling you, the new stuff crushes everything else, and it's just exciting. I mean, with How to Be a Human, we've been playing that song on the road for about a year, and people just go off to it instantly. So I think there's something about these new songs. So, I mean, obviously we're going to play old stuff too. We're going to be playing the songs everybody wants to hear. You know, I'm a big believer in giving people what they want. You know, I'm not going to go out there and just start jamming on, you know,
right.
They want to hear Worlds Collide. They want to hear Bombshell. You know, so we're playing all that stuff, but we're gonna definitely filter in a handful of new ones, and I think people will really dig it.
Earlier on in this interview, you talked about how you love to get back to Texas, and you know, you guys have a lot of Texas dates on this tour. Now, with that being said, are you gonna go deep into the archives and play 20 miles to Texas and 25 to hell?
You know what? It's possible. You know, I'm not sure if we have a couple new guys in the band, so whether they know that one or not, we'll have to dust that up. But there's some long drives, so maybe over the course of a 12-hour drive, we can learn it and bust it out. I haven't played that song forever. But, you know, there was a tradition whenever we were on tour and we got close to Texas, you know, literally 20 miles or so, we put it on and listened to it. Texas has always been good to us, and as you know, it's so huge there. You can spend like a month in Texas and not even leave.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, we talked about Builders of the Future, which comes out on May the 27th. And you briefly mentioned the last album of original material called Somewhere on the Other Side of Nowhere, but in between there, we had the covers album. Any, are you going to be throwing any of those out while you're out on tour as well?
I don't think we're going to do any covers on this run, but that record was a strange animal. It was never even meant to be an album. We were
really
doing these covers. Well, you know, originally it was not to bore everybody. It was like we just got approached to write 12 cover tunes for licensing purposes, which means, you know, for TV shows or movies, and there was a small provision in the contract that it could be released as an album, you know. And I thought, who the hell's going to want to do that? Who's going to, you know? And lo and behold, like 6 months later, there's a Powerman 5000 covers album, which I never meant to actually have out. But actually, looking back on it, it's kind of cool. You know, it has some pretty cool moments. You know, If anybody hasn't heard of it, it's like David Bowie songs and Devo and Twisted Sister, and it's just all over the map. It's pretty crazy listen.
When I first got into radio, I really, really, really didn't like bands, bands that did covers. I mean, to me, covers were for bands that were playing in little bars on Friday and Saturday night, and that was it. And then, they started to become a little bit more popular and stuff like that. And then I guess I kind of took the blinders off, and what I really appreciate about covers is that with this new audience that, that rock and roll rolls over every year, because as kids grow older and stuff like that, I think these covers are pretty damn important because, there may be a kid that's a huge Powerman 5000 fan out there that doesn't know who David Bowie is. And,
right.
And to hear you guys do something like that may introduce them to the artists that really laid the groundwork for what rock and roll is today.
No, it's true. That's a good point. I never thought of it like that. I think that it is, and also I think it's important, when you do a cover tune, what we try to do is really just put a bizarre spin on them, and not just copy what the original did, and just sort of, pay tribute, but make it your own. And you're right though, but and on that note, that's sort of like, everyone likes to bash the internet in music. It's sort of, it's taken its toll, but what the internet's done too is it's taken the timeline away from a lot of bands, and we'll go out and play a show, and I look out and there's like kids, 12, 13 years old, and I'm like, well, how they would have never, had they not been YouTube and Facebook and just searching, Googling, they wouldn't know about this band. At a certain point, you'd be relegated to the bargain bin at the record store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's a real power in keeping that, just keeping relevant and keeping new people engaged in what you're doing. And, it's sort of like we said about cover tunes with other artists, keeping people aware that this stuff exists,
You've been going at it since the early 90s. So the first part of the question is how do you stay fresh? And the second part is it because you're a freaking vampire? You haven't aged at all, Spider.
It's rock and roll, man. It keeps you young. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, look, I actually make a pretty concerted effort to take care of myself.
Yeah.
I eat well, and I don't, I'm not a saint by any means. I'll have a drink now and then, but I'm not really a partier. And I just think it's really important to stay vital. There's nothing worse than, going to see your favorite band and, the singer suddenly put on 150 pounds. And, I just want to stay I just want to keep it feeling, exciting. And, and it just, you're like sort of as young as you are in your head. And I think doing this for a living, it just keeps you, it's a state of arrested development for me anyway. I don't think I've ever progressed past 13 years old mentally anyway. So, I think, it makes sense that physically I'd stay the same. But yeah, I mean, creatively, it's funny, it just never seems to get old or boring. It's just every time we make a record, every time we play a show, I kid you not, it always feels like the first time. It's like I'm just starting, I'm just learning. I'm just, with this new record, I'm like, I feel like, wow, I can't believe we just made this record after 20 years or whatever it's been.
Wow.
It feels like a brand new thing. It just always seems exciting. And if it ever stops being that way, then I'll stop. I'll quit. It's not always about how popular you are and how many records you sell or how many people show up at the gig. It's more about how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as I'm happy, and I'm digging it, and I feel like I have something, exciting or interesting to say, I'll keep at it.
I think what you said, obviously, everybody can relate to, but I'm glad you said what you said because there are bands everywhere, and there's all these kids with these, delusions of grandeur that, okay, I'm going to start a band and become this multi-platinum selling rock star. I'm going to have strippers with me every night and do all the best drugs and all this stuff. And, and it's so tough to break into the business and get to the level that Powerman 5000 is at. And for you to say it's all about having fun and doing it, as long as you feel good at the end of each night, that's what it's all about. I really hope that resonates for all the up-and-comers that are listening right now, because I think that's probably the best word of advice anybody could ever give.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, it's true, and and the reality is, you may get to that point. You may be that multi-platinum, but you may not be that way forever. And then you have to be able to deal with, like, you have to, I mean, we're the perfect example of, we've been on every level of highs and lows and everything in between. And like, you have to be able to deal with that. You have to be able to deal that it might take 10 years for you to get some success. And then you may have success for a year and then it falls off and you're not the flavor of the month anymore, And you have to be confident enough in yourself and enjoy what you do regardless of all that stuff. Because, and that's why you see bands just crumble and give up. And, the second they are not what they once were, or they can't handle it, their egos are shattered. And,
yeah.
I think it's important to, know that, like, it's a crazy roller coaster ride if you want to do this, and you've got to be prepared for it. There are very few bands that just sit at the top forever,
Right.
And it's something to think about for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, man, I appreciate you saying that. I know you've got, I've just got a couple more and I'll let you go. I know you've got a pretty busy schedule, but for those that are just now tuning in, we've got Spider from Powerman 5000. Two more questions and then I'll let you go, Spider. First off, we were talking about, you never know, it's not going to last forever. What would be on your plate if you were to ever hang it up?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but, honestly, one of the best times I've ever had was producing the show Death Valley, which is a show that I created and sold to MTV a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it only ran for one season, but it was really like the only other thing I've ever done that rivaled the fun of being in a band, And so I really sort of miss that, and I would love to, get back into that world a little bit. And, I feel like that's sort of the next step, because, well, I mean, I say this, but I also know it's not true. It's like there's an expiration date on being a rock star, but as we know now, that's not even true anymore.
Right.
70 years old. People are used to seeing, like, Mick Jagger and whoever else running around on stage as senior citizens. So, but the reality is, at some point, you probably will want to go, like, hey, listen, it's time to do something else. And for me, that would be probably choice number one, to sort of get back into that world and pursue that. That kind of stuff.
Right on. That's cool. And before I let you go, Spider, well, who are the new bands out there that you're digging, or are you sticking with more of the older stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all over the map with stuff. It's funny. I tend not to even listen to stuff that people would probably expect. I mean, I'm a big fan of, like, The Antwoord, which is this crazy South African rap rave group. I like Lana Del Rey. It's like the stuff I listen to is about as far from what we do as you can imagine. So that's where my head's at.
Oh, that's cool, man. And you got to have balance too, man. It's especially being a musician. You're out on the road. If you're listening to the same thing over and over and over, man, it kind of puts you in a rut, I'm sure.
Well, I think it's important to, expand that horizon, and also, it helps you create. You get inspired by stuff.
Yeah.
You're only listening to music that sounds like what you do. You're not going to probably create anything all that exciting, Right. What I mean? But when you start listening to stuff that's far out of your genre, and you can somehow adapt subtly that vibe, it can really create some cool stuff.
Right on. Well, brother, we appreciate you joining us.
All right, man. Great talking to you again.
All right, that was Spider from Powerman 5000 joining me on Loud and Unfiltered. That was actually a flashback interview to 2014. Diet Dr. Pepper. It's my life force nowadays. You knew me about 20 years ago. It was Jaeger. Now, though, it is Diet Dr. Pepper. It definitely gets me through the day. All right. So it's the 12 episodes of Christmas on Loud and Unfiltered. Giving you a brand new episode each day. Some of them are going to be with new guests. Some of them are going to be flashback interviews. We'll give you a little bit of everything in the 12 episodes of Christmas. I appreciate you joining us on Loud and Unfiltered. It really is an honor to get to spend a little bit of your time with you. So thank you so much for your support. And don't forget, swing by the website, DaleJr.forPresident.com. Loudandunfiltered.com was taken, so we went with the next best thing. And the lawyers tell me, well, I always have to give a little disclaimer. We are not affiliated with Dale Earnhardt Jr. or his desire to run for president. However, I think it'd be cool if he did. I love me some Dale Jr. All right, DaleJr.forPresident.com got a really cool merch store up there. That's one way that you can support us. But please, check out the website. And thank you so much. Happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas. We've got more episodes of the 12 episodes of Christmas coming up on Loud and Unfiltered. So please remember, be a good human and stay loud and unfiltered, y'all.